Tonight, from the Beltway and beyond, we are getting reaction to Juan Williams' abrupt firing from his post at National Public Radio. Now, NPR announced earlier today that it had terminated Williams' contract effective immediately for making the following comments on Monday night's O'Reilly show.
Look, Bill, I'm not a bigot. You know the kind of books I've written about the civil rights movement in this country. But when I get on a plane, I got to tell you, if I see people who are in Muslim garb, and I think, you know, they're identifying themselves first and foremost as Muslims, I get worried. I get nervous.
Now, this afternoon, Fox News obtained an internal memo in which NPR President and CEO Vivian Schiller defended her decision, also adding that, quote, "We're profoundly sorry that this has happened during fundraising week." Now, our cameras caught up with Schiller a short time ago in Atlanta. Take a look at this.
His comments and his comments in the past, again, I want to point out, this isn't about the one issue. It's about sort of a pattern of issues that are very, very controversial. We don't want our reporters and news analysts being the focus of news. We want them to cover the news, and when they become too much the story because they're expressing their own views, that undermines our credibility as a news organization.
Now, some of the biggest names in politics have expressed outrage over the decision, particularly because NPR receives funding from you, the taxpayer. Now, both Newt Gingrich and Mike Huckabee are among the fast-growing list of people calling for Congress to pull its funding for NPR. And former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin tweeted a message directly to Williams, writing, quote, "Juan Williams, you got a taste of the left's hypocrisy. They screwed up firing you." Now, it is that glaring hypocrisy that is perhaps the most disturbing aspect of all of this. On the one hand, NPR says its analysts shouldn't comment on, quote, controversial issues because it hurts the organization's credibility. On the other hand, NPR continues to employ the ultra-liberal political analyst Nina Totenberg. That's the same Nina Totenberg who once said this.
I don't think I have any Jesse Helms defenders here, Nina.
Not me. I think he ought to be worried about what's going on in the good Lord's mind, because if there's retributive justice, he'll get AIDS from a transfusion, or one of his grandchildren will get it.
Well, I guess over at NPR, wishing AIDS on a prominent politician and his grandchildren is fine as long as that politician is a Republican. And here with reaction to the firing and all the fallout, Fox News contributors Bob Beckel and Dana Perino. Guys, welcome back.
Thank you,
Sean.
This Bob, look, you and I, we disagree on issues, passionately on issues. You're a friend of mine. Juan Williams, I know extraordinarily well. He doesn't have a bigoted bone in his body. This firing is beyond the pale, and I think there's a very large issue we've got to address here that I want to get to the heart of. We have NPR getting, what, $1.8 million from Soros? Media Matters, which has groups of people whose sole job is to monitor every conservative in this country, Bob. If they say one word, one phrase, one sentence, they want to attack their advertisers. They want to get them fired. Isn't that the bigger issue here, is that liberals do not believe in free speech in this country?
Well, first of all, let me go back to the Juan Williams issue here for a second. First, what NPR did, and that comment that the head of NPR made about not wanting to make their analyst into the news, they're the ones who made Juan into the news. What Juan said was not analysis of the news, it was his own thoughts. And let me repeat exactly what he said, because I would put the words in my mouth. I don't like the thought that when I get on a plane and I see people in Muslim garb, that it makes me nervous, but it does. And the fact of the matter is, we've been wired here since 9/11 that we're constant, and we're at war against Muslim extremists. And so I think the whole thing is so illiberal, so wrong, so politically correct, and it gives the impression that those of us on the left, and there are a lot of us, by the way, who agree with me on this, I think I can speak for a lot of liberals tonight, that we find what NPR did to be outrageous, atrocious, and well out of bounds as far as the liberal process is concerned.
To what extent, Dana, do you think that this is a targeted effort now, and I've lived this my entire now adult career, and that they want to silence, intimidate people that they disagree with?
Sure. Remember, the definition of liberal is to be open-minded. I think that we find over and over again that is not the case when it comes to certain segments. I was shocked this morning. When I woke up, my first thought was, they just made a hero out of Juan Williams. This guy is, sometimes I disagree with him, but he is not disagreeable. And he also is someone who is much loved all across America because he's unpredictable in terms of his analysis. You always learn something when you hear from him. he says something interesting in a Fox News opinion piece that he wrote today, where he said that, they've been wanting to do this for a long time. Like, they were looking for an excuse. And he talks about an episode where he was invited to do an interview with President Bush on race relations, and they pulled it from him. I was the press secretary at the time. I said, well, if NPR's not going to let you do it, why don't we do it over at Fox News? And I think that, maybe NPR says that it's been coming for a long time. I think that that was really kind of the pinpoint moment. And the way that NPR has handled this is so ham-handed that I think that it has done irreparable damage to its brand.
And that raises the question whether or not public tax dollars, that means everybody watching this program contributes to putting NPR on the air. Let me show another soundbite of Schiller actually suggesting that he may need a psychiatrist.
Juan feels the way he feels. That is not for me to pass judgment on. That is really his feelings that he expressed on Fox News are really between him and his, psychiatrist or his publicist or take your pick. But it is not compatible with a news analyst with the role of a news analyst on NPR's air.
Bob,
John, can I just say, if Juan Williams had said, I went down to the Tea Party rally, I saw what those people were wearing, they were crazy, and it scared me. Do you think for a second that they would have decided to fire him?
No.
Absolutely
not.
not.
Wait, but look at what Nina Totenberg said. She wished Jesse... Bob, you didn't like Jesse Helms.
No, I didn't. Just what I just heard is even more outrageous. That's the first time I'd heard that. First of all, who is this woman to suggest he, first of all, has a psychiatrist, number one, and who should give the idea that somehow she should be giving some advice on what he should do. And when Fox caught up with her and she said, this has been a series of things, if you notice she said that. I have not heard of a single thing that NPR has thought about Juan and the problem with Juan before this issue. And that is something, when she talks about fundraising, I contribute to NPR. I'm not contributing to NPR, I can promise you that. Not this year, in honor of Juan Williams.
Yeah,
that is just illiberal.
Here's Fox Fair and Balanced, Beckel, as evidenced by you and by evidence by Pat Caddell and I've interviewed Michael Moore. I can go through and Lanny Davis and Terry McAuliffe and a whole variety of people I disagree with. Juan was on the show last night. We disagreed. Now, the question here is, I think there's a broader issue, and I want to go back to this. Nina Totenberg can suggest that Jesse Helms and his grandchildren get AIDS. She said that. She still works there at this
Not only that, Sean, but then you hear the people laugh.
And then you hear the laughing. That's true.
Right.
But the question here is this well-orchestrated, well-funded, in many ways, now I gotta give a lot of credit to Fox. He got a promotion today. He got an extended contract today, and he deserves it because he is a great commentator. He brings a lot to the table as a contributor and somebody on a lot of shows on this network. But what about George Soros donating this money to Media Matters to monitor people, to get them thrown off the air? What about, giving money to NPR? It's like, somehow we have this magical hand and we're going to try and pick off people one at a time. That's a pretty chilling effect, Bob, on free speech.
Well, let's keep in mind the Koch brothers, or whatever you want to call them, Koch brothers, who are doing exactly the same thing to a bunch of liberals on the other side. Let's not get into that. The bigger issue is here. The president, this woman, Schiller, of NPR, has done irreparable damage to a very good organization. Nina Totenberg, I commented on that back then. I thought it was outrageous, and I couldn't imagine they would let her get away with saying that. What Juan Williams said paled in comparison to that.
We have more to come. Last question. Should we defund them?
I think that if they're willing to take $1.8 million from George Soros, it's a small amount of their budget that they get from the American taxpayer, but maybe it's time to change that.
All right, we got to run. Guys, good to see you both. Thank you both for